Hey people, welcome back to the channel. This is a story in which Naruto meets Kurama in the land of waves and they have a mutual friendship. In this story Naruto shifts toward his mother's side as a Uzumaki seal master. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the video. Leave a comment if you want to suggest fanfic. Check the description for credits and support the creator of the story. So let us begin. Chapter 56. Tsunade was right, the resort she had recommended to the Konoha 12 and the Sand Trio was amazing. They arrived, hungry and exhausted, after traveling non-stop since being kicked out of Kumo. Not to mention, Neji was still suffering from a pretty bad headache from having the seal used on him. At first, they were a little depressed that it would take an hour for their meal to be prepared, but a quick bath before dinner instantly put that to rest. There was something about the mineral content of the springs that just made them so relaxing and soothing. And if it wasn't for Choji's stomach, they probably wouldn't have gotten out at all. The food only helped make the night more enjoyable. You know, I'm kind of starting to like these group dinners, said Sakura. It's actually nice just to sit down and have fun every now and then. Yeah, and that means we should piss off Kumo more if this is what we get for doing so, commented Naruto, earning a laugh from most of the table. Speaking of which, what do you think happened to everyone else? Asked Sakura. I mean, Gaara and Temari are with us, leaving just the Kumo ninja and Fu. I honestly don't see that Goyaku guy moving anytime soon after what Naruto did to him. Naruto grinned and rubbed the back of his head. Well, it's not my fault he went berserk, defended the blonde. Anyways, I still can't believe you guys did that to Kumo. I mean sure, you kicked their ass, but that shouldn't give them any right to just throw us out. That was most unyouthful of them, commented Lee. At least, Tsunade-sama said we could finish the exam at home, added Neji. Yosh. I look forward to testing my youth against any one of you, exclaimed Lee. That's the spirit Lee, called out Guy from the next booth over where all the Jonin were sitting. Oh brother, said Tenten, face palming herself. Anyways, Sakura's right. Stuff like this is enjoyable and it's kind of like what we did after the second exam. Even Sasuke had to agree with that. This was rather relaxing and best of all, he no longer had to worry about screaming fangirls as Ino had given up on being a fangirl. Yeah, I'd suppose the only one missing would be Fu. She seemed like a nice girl. I really hope she does well, said Hinata. Oh my god, that flying ability of hers was so cool, said Ino. I wonder how she does that. Asterisk munch, maybe we could visit her. Munch, in Taki-some. Munch, day, Choji said, while stuffing himself with food. Naruto. You okay? Asked Hinata. The moment Choji mentioned Fu and Taki, Naruto tensed up for some reason. Yeah, I think so. It's just, never mind, he replied. What's the matter? Is this about Fu? She wasn't that bad and Hinata's right, she's actually kind of nice, commented Ino. It's got nothing to do with Fu, although it kind of does, said Naruto. Perhaps it would be best to tell them, said Shino, grabbing Naruto's attention. Are you sure? Asked Naruto. Yes. We all consider her a friend, right? Everyone nodded, slightly confused, at Shino's question. While they didn't know her all too well, they all saw her as a rather nice and friendly person, even if she did keep to herself a little. Then you should know as her friends. That would only help her to know that she has true friends somewhere out there. What do you mean? It's sounding like she has no friends in Taki, said Sakura. Sakura, you remember that mission? You know, the one that went horribly wrong. We had to escort Shibi, the leader of Takigakure, back to the village, said Naruto. Yeah, I'd rather not, but what does this have to do with Fu and not having any friends? Asked Sakura. Shibi was the only person in Taki she could call a friend, until Orochimaru had to be a bastard and take him away from her. In Taki, she has no friends and everyone hates her. They see her as something else, something that she carries and that they all fear, said Naruto. Why is this conversation sounding familiar? Asked Sakura. Yeah, it's like we just had it a month ago, only Naruto was referring to himself. Wait, you don't mean? A few people suddenly realized what Naruto was referring to. They had in fact heard this conversation before. Naruto had told them practically the same thing when he told everyone that he was a Jinchuriki. Gaara's the Jinchuriki of the Ikibi, I'm the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. But you all knew that, said Naruto. Fu is in fact, the Jinchuriki of the Nanabi. Actually, that's where she gets her flying ability, kind of like Gaara's sand and my regeneration. To say everyone was stunned would be an understatement. It was at this time when the Jonins joined the conversation after hearing the word, Jinchuriki. She's really a Jinchuriki? Asked a surprised Kurenai. Naruto and Shino both nodded. Now that you think about it, that explains the incident back in the Konoha prelims when that red chakra began to emerge, commented Kakashi. Damn, if her life is as bad as yours was, then I can't help but feel sorry for the poor girl, said Kiba. Is there anything that could be done to help her? I can't imagine having to live in a village where everyone hates you, asked Tenten. Both Naruto and Gaara shot her a look. Sorry. I actually wish there was. If she were a normal ninja, there would be more options, but if she's a Jinchuriki, then that makes things much more complicated, said Asuma. What the hell do you mean? How does being a Jinchuriki complicate things? Asked Kiba. It just does. Most of the people in a village simply see us as the plague and want us to disappear, explained Gaara. However, there are those, usually in a position of power within the village, that will never let that happen. To them, we are nothing more than ultimate weapons, and they won't let us get away. That's just wrong. How could people be so unyouthful? Asked Lee. I'm sorry, but it's true. There are even people in Konoha that would have tried to turn me into a mindless weapon had it not been for Sandaime Gigi, explained Naruto. At some point in time, Jiraiya had explained to him that an old politician, Warhawk named Danzo had tried to turn Naruto into a soulless puppet to be used as a weapon. Needless to say, Naruto wasn't happy to hear that there were actually those kinds of people in Konoha, but he began to understand the reason why his agreement with the Kyuubi was being kept a secret, even if the secret was slowly getting out, but those who knew were trusted friends. As for why the rest of the village wants to get rid of us, it's because they see us for what we contain, not who we are. We live our lives, wondering why everyone hates us, searching for something to fill the emptiness. That loneliness is enough to drive one insane. But all you need is that one person. Someone to open up and show you just an ounce of compassion. I consider myself lucky because I have all of you, and you've even opened up to Gaara here. But Fu, she's got no one, explained Naruto. Wow. Just wow, said Kiba. No one could ever imagine Naruto to be so deep. Hinata tightened her grip on him. She knew his pain to some extent as her entire family had practically shunned her when she was younger. It was Naruto that kept her going and not giving in. Sasuke was also aware of how that pain felt after his entire clan was murdered. After that, he was alone, and thought that no one understood his pain. As such, he kept everyone out and some people began to avoid him until Naruto came along and he began to open up. While it wasn't to the same extent as Naruto, both of them had a small understanding of what Naruto was talking about. The only person who could say that they had it worse was Gaara, and that was because even his own family had tried to kill him. Asuma-sensei, is there anything we can do for her? Asked Ino. Without straining relationships between our two villages, no. And even then, I doubt Taki would let us help her. Not to mention, no one from our village has even set foot in Taki and they don't go about allowing outsiders into their village, said Asuma. Don't get me wrong, I want to help, but this is an incredibly complicated situation now. They desperately wanted to help their new friend. They didn't care if she was a Jinchuriki. She seemed nice and there was no way she could be worse than Naruto. They realized that she would return home and suffer. Any bonds that she may have formed over the past month would not be allowed to grow. And that was the most likely scenario. The entire Konoha 12, the Sand Trio, and their senseis wanted desperately to help the poor girl, but found that they would be powerless to do so unless some bizarre twist of fate occurred. After a very relaxing night, and some deep conversations, the entire Konoha caravan was waiting outside the gates to Nagastuchi, with the exception of two individuals. Where is that Gaki and his perverted teacher? Shouted Tsunade. I think I know where Naruto is, I'll go find him, Hokage-sama, said Iruka. Tsunade gave him a quick nod. Tsunade-sama, you do realize where we are, said Shizune. Suon face-palmed herself. Shizune, Sakura, have a stretcher ready. That pervert had better not be doing what I think he's doing. Tahehe. Very nice, yes very nice indeed. The ladies here are perfect, said Jiraiya with a perverted smile on his face. This research will be perfect for me to start on my next book. Jiraiya had hit the peeping gold mine at the city's largest hot spring. The girls in the hot spring were some of the prettiest he had ever seen, and their assets were just what he needed for the inspiration to get started on his new book. But if there was one that truly caught his attention, it was this one woman. Jiraiya couldn't make most of her appearance out due to the steam from the spring. However, the one thing he could see, which was the most important of them all, was her rather large chest. If he didn't know better, he would say it was almost as big as Tsunade's. And then said woman began to move closer to the hole he was peeping through. That's it, come a little close. Let Jiraiya get a good look at you. Oh yes, you'll be perfect inspiration for the main woman in my next book. As she got close, Jiraiya could better make out the feminine beauty that was coming towards him. Oh yeah, that figure is just to die for. It's just like Tsunade's. And that innocent smile on her face, so sweet and cute, just like Tsunade. And those breasts. Oh damn, she's a fine lady indeed. I'd say her chest might even be as big as, oh crap. Before Jiraiya could turn and run, a fist came slamming through the wall and into Jiraiya's face. Pervert. There were a few shrieks coming from inside the hot spring, but once the other women realized what Tsunade had done, they were thanking the busty Hokage. At the very moment that Shizune and Sakura had their medical equipment set up, a battered Jiraiya came crash landing into the center of the caravan, where Sakura and Shizune were waiting. Naruto, shouted Iruka, looking for his favorite blonde student. Thankfully, Naruto wasn't too hard to find. The previous night, he had heard Naruto talking about this amazing ramen stand in the capital of the land of hot water. And sure enough, there was Naruto. Naruto, we've got to get going, said Iruka. I know, but I almost forgot to get the special ramen for my passport. Please, can I just get one bowl? Begged Naruto. Iruka sighed. Fine, he said, pulling out a familiar book and handing it to the chef. Make the 2 bowls of the special. Coming right up, said the chef. Wow. You have one too? Asked Naruto. What the hell is up with all these ramen addicts, thought Kurama. Of course I do. And now that I know you have one, that means we can enjoy the Ichiraku special one of these days, smiled Iruka. Hey, I'm looking forward to that. Only 45 more ramen dishes and then it's Ichiraku, said Naruto. Wait, you're telling me you haven't gotten the dish from Ichiraku? Asked Iruka. No, I've decided to save it for last, replied Naruto. Have you had it? Of course I've had it. And before you ask, no I will not tell you. You're just going to have to wait until you finish the rest of that book, lectured Iruka. I know. It'll only make it so much better. Can you at least tell me this though? Is it better than the Uzumaki-style ramen Teuchi makes? Asked Naruto. You have no idea. I will say though that it is so much better than anything I've ever tasted, said Iruka. Sadly, that only made Naruto's mouth drool. He couldn't wait. Finally, after some waiting, the chefs set their bowls down and Iruka and Naruto shared their first ramen in what felt like months. What really stood out with this ramen was the broth. The water used in the broth actually came directly from a special spring in the mountains, just north of the city and gave the ramen a rather unique, yet delicious flavor. After finishing their ramen, Naruto and Iruka returned to find a very bruised Jiraiya and a satisfied Suon. Naruto already knew what happened. After the few small distractions, they were off, back to Konoha. The caravan of travelers arrived in Konoha in the evening of the following day. Tsunade was impressed that a group of that size was able to travel with such speed. Thankfully, the civilians that were accompanying them were assisted or carried by the shinobi of the group, allowing them to travel at the pace that matched the rest of the group. In a sense, it was good to be back in Konoha after spending a month in Crazy Town. You're all dismissed. I want those of you participating in the exams to be in my office at 3 p.m. tomorrow afternoon and I'll fill you in on the arrangements that have been made. You will have until the fight's off to prepare and rest, said Tsunade, dismissing everyone. The following day, Naruto had gone to Ichiraku for lunch, bringing along Team 8 and the rest of Team 7 with him. Both Teuchi and Ayame were intrigued by the stories everyone had to share, especially with how they got kicked out of Kumo. In fact, that was the talk of the town, was how the Konoha shinobi were kicked out of Kumo. The entire village found it hilarious that 8 of their shinobi had made up the majority of the final round and managed to piss Kumo off that much. It also gave them something to celebrate at the same time. I still can't believe you guys got kicked out of Kumo, laughed Teuchi. I hope you got your passport stamped there, Naruto. If not, then I don't see you completing it anytime soon. All good. I got it taken care of the very first night I was there, grinned Naruto, holding up his passport. That makes 4, 1 from River Country, 1 from Greens Country, 1 from Kumo, and I just got the 1 from Hot Water Country yesterday. Only 45 more and I'll be back for your special dish. Tabeo. Hey, and I suppose the trip you're leaving on with Jiraiya-sama will give you quite a few more, said Teuchi. That's right, you're leaving soon, aren't you? Asked Kiba. How long will you be gone? Ero Sennin said 2 to 3 years. And he said we'd be leaving sometime shortly after the last round of matches, said Naruto. This only managed to deflate poor Hinata a little. She knew Naruto would be leaving soon, yet she didn't want to face the fact that she would be without Naruto for that long, and Kiba only managed to remind her that that time was coming up pretty soon. Hey Hinata, what's wrong? And nothing, she said. Naruto recognized the slight stutter. While her stutter was practically gone, she did stutter when she was depressed or sad. I just don't want you to leave. Now Naruto was feeling depressed. Hey, don't worry. I know it's for a few years, but I'll be coming back. I don't necessarily want to leave for that long either, but I have to if I'm going to get stronger, said Naruto, trying to cheer her up. I'll tell you what. After the matches and before I leave, we'll go on one more big date, okay? Well, I guess, she said, teasingly and smiling. I can't believe I almost forgot about that. Naruto's leaving for a few years and Kakashi-sensei's taking Sasuke away for a few years as well. All while I'm cooped up in the hospital, thought Sakura. She looked over towards Sasuke, who was enjoying his own ramen. I wonder if Ino was right. I wonder if Sasuke really does have feelings for me. Help, can anyone hear me? Naruto's head popped up as he heard an unfamiliar voice. Naruto? Asked Hinata. She tried to get her boyfriend's attention, but Naruto had entered some sort of trance. Chome. Is that you? Asked Kurama. Kurama, Amy, said Chome's voice. However, it was really broken and Naruto and Kurama could barely piece it together. You're coming through pretty weak, said Kurama. Fu, danger, dying, was all that could be heard before the mental link was severe. Naruto? Asked Hinata again, giving Naruto a nudge. She figured he was talking to the Kyuubi as he usually did this whenever they were in the middle of some sort of conversation. Naruto then snapped back. Is everything okay? No, we've got to hurry. I just got a message from the Nanabi. Fu's in trouble and she's dying apparently, said Naruto. What? Shouted the remaining 5 members of the group. If she's dying, we must find her, said Shino. Naruto nodded. Shadow clone jutsu, he said as a clone poofed into existence. Go tell Bachan about this and tell her to be ready. We'll send some kind of signal when we find her. The clone nodded and the 6 of them raced towards the west gate of the village. Racing past the gate, this startled the bored Izumo and Kotetsu, who had been placed back on guard duty. What was that? Asked Izumo. Looks like teams Kakashi and Kurenai, but where are they going? Said Kotetsu. Should we inform the Hokage? Asked Izumo. I don't want to, but we probably should, said Kotetsu as he darted off towards the Hokage's office. A little way out of the village, the group of 6 stopped and Hinata took to the tallest tree around, hoping to be able to see something with her Byakugan. Shino unleashed his insects to search for any hint of Fu's chakra. Naruto created around 100 clones and had them fan out. They weren't sure where Fu was, but Naruto was sure she had to be somewhere in the general area for Chome and Kurama to make a mental connection. Hey guys, I can smell a small hint of blood, said Kiba, pointing in a direction to the northwest of where they were standing. Hinata focused her Byakugan in that direction. She had about a 5 kilometers range that she could extend her vision up to. Thankfully, she found what she was looking for in that field of vision and it wasn't good. You see anything, Hinata? Yes, 3 kilometers northwest. At the bank of a river. She's not looking very good, said Hinata. Right. Let's hurry, shouted Naruto, but Shino was well ahead of them. His insects had picked up on the Nanabe's chakra. Tsunade-sama, shouted the Naruto clone. Bursting into the door. What is it, brat? I wasn't supposed to be bothered for another few hours. Shouted a cranky Hokage. Hokage-sama. Report from the west gate. Teams Kurenai and Kakashi were spotted leaving the village, reported Katetsu. Now Tsunade looked at the Naruto clone with interest. You're a clone, aren't you? She asked. The Naruto clone nodded. Then spill it, why is your team and teammate leaving the village without my orders? Sorry, but one of our friends is in danger and we couldn't wait, said the clone. Danger? Who? And what sort of danger? Asked Tsunade. I'm sorry, but can he leave? This is kind of personal, said Naruto, pointing towards Katetsu. Tsunade motioned for the Chunin to leave, along with the 4 ambush he had stationed around the office. Okay Naruto, what's going on? Asked Tsunade. You know Fu from the exams? Asked Naruto. That green-haired flying kunoichi from Taki. Naruto nodded. Well, she's also the Jinchuriki of the Nanabe and well, I kind of got a distress call from the Nanabe saying that she was dying. If Furball and the Nanabe can make a mental link, that must mean they are close by so boss and the others went off to try and find her. He said to be ready for some sort of signal when they do find her, explained the clone. Please, she's a friend of ours since the exams. We can't let her die. Tsunade sighed. Fine. Shizune, she barked. A few moments later, Shizune came barreling through the doors, carrying Tauntaun. Prepare a medical squad to head out at the first signal. Tsunade-sama, what exactly are we looking for? Asked Shizune. A friend is injured and Naruto's gone to find her. I don't know what the signal is, just look for anything unusual, said Tsunade. Hi, said Shizune as she bowed and left to get the medical squad prepared. You're lucky brat, I'll let you and your friend's actions slide this time because I know you're doing it for a good cause, but I don't want you racing out of the village without my approval again, got that? Asked Tsunade. I won't do it again and I'm sorry, but I couldn't wait, said the clone before dispelling. There, shouted Hinata as the 6 of them came into a clearing on the side of a river. Lying along the bank of the river was a certain green-haired girl that they were looking for. Being the medic, Sakura was the first one over as she began examining Fu. The girl was in really bad shape with 2 kunai embedded in each side of her upper back, a third one on the back, just below the rib cage, and a 4th one lodged into her stomach. Not to mention, she had what appeared to be a broken nose as if someone had punched it. How is she still alive? These injuries should have killed her and Taki is a good day and a half up the river, said Sakura. Kyuubi says it's probably because of the Nanabe. While she doesn't have my regeneration, the Nanabe's struggling to keep her alive, said Naruto. Is there anything you can do? Asked Sasuke. I don't know. She's fading and I don't know if normal medical jutsu will be enough, said Sakura. Wait. Use my chakra, or actually Furball's chakra. That might be enough to heal her. It was enough to heal the hole in Sasuke's chest after those sound freaks were killed. As he said that, a one-tailed cloak enveloped him, definitely surprising Kiba and to a smaller extent, everyone else. So you really do seem to have control over the Kyuubi's chakra, said Kiba. Naruto nodded. Like I said earlier, he's not what everyone thinks about him, replied Naruto. Naruto, come over here. I'm going to try and channel your chakra into her wounds. At the very least, we can stop most of the bleeding, but she needs to get to a hospital if she's going to have any chance at living, said Sakura. Naruto came over and placed his chakra tail over Fu's wounds as Sakura did her best to guide the chakra to where it needed to be. Kaiten, Great Dragon Fire Jutsu, shouted Sasuke as he shot a giant plume of fire, shaped like a dragon's head upwards towards the sky. Hopefully they see that. I'll send another one up in a few minutes. A few minutes passed and Sakura had done the best she could on the wound to Fu's stomach. He now moved upwards to heal one of the wounds in Fu's shoulder, which most likely punctured the lungs. What the hell happened to you? Asked Sakura to herself. I don't know, but if any of those bastards in Taki did this to her, they're going to pay, threatened Naruto. It's amazing she's been able to hold on this long, said Sakura. At this time, Sasuke sent up another fire dragon flare. If the medical corps were coming, they should be here any minute now. Like I said, it's the Nanabi. She may not give her the same regeneration powers as the Kyuubi, but she's most likely the thing that's keeping her alive right now, said Naruto. As Sakura finished up on the right shoulder, she moved down to the wound that most likely punctured Fu's liver. Naruto. Sakura. They're here, said Kiba as he could smell the medical team getting closer. A few seconds later, Shizune and two other field medics appeared at the river bank. Sakura hurried to get some patchwork done on the liver and the other shoulder before Shizune and the other medics took off towards the hospital. A few hours later at the hospital, all 12 members of the Konoha 12, San Trio, the Jonin senseis, Jiraiya and Aburame Shibi were waiting in the waiting area of the hospital when the operation light turned to green, indicating that surgery was over. A few minutes later, Shizune emerged wheeling a gurney table with Fu lying on it, a good sign that she would survive. Tsunade followed shortly after. How is she? Asked Sakura. She'll live, but it was a close one. Your clone was probably right, Naruto. If you guys hadn't left immediately, it might have been too late, said Tsunade. So what's going to happen to her? Asked Kiba. That was something that all of them wanted to know. Let's talk about that in private, Tsunade said, leading them into a private meeting room. Jiraiya activated the privacy seals for the room. So thanks to the loudmouth blonde over there, you all know that he is the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, and I think you all have a better understanding of what really happened on that night. But that's not why we're here. As I'm sure you've all been made aware of, thanks again to a particular loudmouth blonde. Hey, pouted Naruto. Fu is the Jinchuriki of the Nanabi. We also believe that is the reason she survived her injuries, explained Tsunade. Now, I am making this an S-rank secret. None of you are to discuss Fu's status as a Jinchuriki with anyone else. I'll leave, who should know, up to her and myself. Now, because of her status, that makes what'll happen to her a little foggy. But I do have some suspicions. She won't be going back to Taki though, will she? They all hate her there. Exclaimed Naruto. As I said, I don't know what her future holds. We are going to have to wake up and hear from her what exactly happened. Once we know what happened, we'll go from there, said Tsunade. The politics surrounding Jinchurikis are tricky. You can probably attest a little to that, Naruto. Naruto's head lowered. Yeah, I know, replied Naruto. She'll probably be awake in 2 or 3 days. I'll call you in when that happens. Now, you're all dismissed, but those of you in the exams can meet me in my office, said Tsunade. The 9 Chunin hopefuls proceeded to Tsunade's office in the Hokage Tower, finding an irritated Hyuga Shinji waiting outside. Naruto nearly gagged at the sight of him, and just about everyone else there wanted a piece of the Hyuga's ass after the stunt he pulled on Neji. Tsunade led them inside her office to discuss the terms of the next round. Right, so I have made the necessary arrangements for the exam. They will be in 5 days from now, starting at 1 p.m. in the stadium. Now, I have some good news. While our final exams consist of an elimination tournament, which would mean Neji and Temari are unable to continue, I was able to persuade the Shinobi Council that since the exam originally begun under Kumo's rules, we should continue to follow the format that Kumo uses. That means that as long as Neji and Temari are able to fight, they are allowed to continue, explained Tsunade. Neji and Temari let out a huge sigh of relief. They were unsure if they would be allowed to continue, and they were pretty sure that their matches did not last long enough to impress the judges. Seeing as there are 10 of you, there will be 5 matches, and those matches will be chosen at random just before the start of the matches. I will say, some of you have already secured your promotion and some of you will need to convince the judges a little more. I suggest you all prepare to fight your hardest. You have until the match is off to prepare, and I recommend using your time wisely. I will see you in the stadium in 5 days. Outside the tower, everyone went their separate ways, leaving Team 7 to themselves. If it ain't Kakashi's brats. Team 7 turned around to see Zabuza and Haku standing behind them. Haku. Zabuza, exclaimed Naruto, greeting the former demon of the hidden mist and his apprentice. Hear you guys pissed of Kumo pretty bad. Nice job, complimented Zabuza. I also heard you kicked that Goyaku bastard's ass pretty hard. Hey, we might have done something like that, grinned Naruto. So what have you two been up to? Haku and Zabuza lifted their sleeves to reveal a red Anbu tattoo, indicating that they had made the Hunter Nin division of Anbu. We were afraid our first assignment would have to be to hunt you three down after you bolted out of the village, said Zabuza, reaching for his sword. Team 7 let out a nervous gulp before Zabuza released his grip. We are also preparing for the Jonin trials that are coming up in a few months, said Haku. Yeah, I've had enough of being a Chunin. I want my Jonin rank back, that way I can go on more exciting missions, complained Zabuza before his attention was diverted towards something. Well, oh shit. Huh. Is something wrong? Asked Naruto. Immediately, Zabuza took off, running as fast as he could. Haha. Yash. Have any of you seen my youthful eternal rival? I wish to see how his flames have grown in the past months, said Guy, running towards the four members of Team 7. Everyone's sweat dropped. All of them decided to cut Zabuza a break this time and point towards the direction that he didn't go as Guy ran off proclaiming about youth. 3 days later, huh. Where am I? Said weary green-haired girl. At first, the lights in the room began to strain her eyes, but after a few moments, they began to adjust. Am I dead? Oh, you're awake, said a female voice. Fu slightly turned her head to see that a nurse was standing in the same room as her. That's good, the Hokage will want to know. Is there anything you need first? Hokage. Am I in Konoha? Fu thought. Yes, we are in Konoha. It was pure luck that I managed to get a hold of Kurama before it was too late, said Chome. But hey, I am the lucky 7. How did I? Asked a still weary Fu. I'll let the Hokage explain that to you when she gets here, said the nurse. Is there anything you need before I go get her? Fu asked for a cup of water and the nurse went to notify Tsunade that her patient had awakened. I can't believe they tried to kill me back there. My own team. I thought I was making progress in Taki. I guess not, Fu thought. She turned her head and had a view out the window. It really did look like she was in Konoha. What caught her attention was a bunch of, get well soon, cards on the table next to her. However, if anything moved her, it was a picture with her all bandaged and asleep in the hospital bed with the members of the Konoha 12 lined up along the side, smiling and for some reason, holding up 7 fingers. Immediately, she recognized the 7 fingers as a sort of code. Basically that and the smiles amounted to something like, we know, and we don't care. We're your friends no matter what. Friends. I actually have friends here. People who don't want me to disappear or die. There are actually people who really do care for me here. I really am dead, aren't I? Thought Fu as she laid back in the bed. About 30 minutes passed. The nurse had returned once more during the time and informed Fu that the Hokage would be down shortly. It was then that Tsunade came through the door. So, how are you feeling? Asked Tsunade. Sore. But, is this a dream? Am I asleep and dying? Asked Fu. Am I really in Konoha? Tsunade chuckled a little at this. No, you're not dying and last I checked this isn't a dream, said Tsunade. If it was, then Jiraiya would have given up on peeping already. Huh? Asked a confused Fu. Never mind. Hopefully you'll never find out, but sadly I doubt that, said Tsunade. Did they know? Asked Fu, pointing at the framed picture. Yeah, Naruto told them. He thought they wouldn't look at you any different, and I think he was right, said Tsunade, giving Fu a lot of relief. They're a special bunch of kids, I'll give them that. So it's true. They really are friends, she thought. Tsunade gave Fu a quick look over. You guys can come in now. She shouted towards the door. At that time, all 12 members of the Konoha 12, their senseis, and even the Sand Trio came into the room. Thankfully, Fu's room was large enough to accommodate all of them or else they would be cramped. It was a warming sight as she could say that there were people who cared about her for the first time since her late grandfather figure. Hokage-sama, what's going to happen to me? You're not going to send me back to Taki, are you? Asked Fu. This was something she was worried about as she didn't want to go back. Suan sighed. That'll depend on what exactly happened that landed you here. You're a Jinchuriki, which could complicate the situation, which is why I need to know every detail on what happened. I promise I'll try to make something work, but I need to know. Fu began to tell her story, although it worried her to no end. It sounded like there was still a chance she could be sent back to Taki, something she most definitely didn't want. Flashback 2 days had passed since the end of the first round of fighting and things around Kumo were beginning to calm down. As both Suna and Konoha had been kicked out 2 days ago, the Raikage thought it would be best if he just made the final round of the exams between Kumo ninja only. At least that way, he would have an excuse to promote more than just Yugito. Fu was sitting in her room of the inn where she was staying at, thinking of the match she had just fought and the match that was coming up. The expulsion of Konoha from Kumo was also fresh on her mind. They had been some of the first people to treat her normal. While she wouldn't train with them during the few weeks of training, there was the occasional night where she would run into a few of them and they would offer if she wanted to join them for dinner or something. It made her feel welcomed and normal, if only for a few hours at a time. Despite losing against Yugito in her first match, she still felt like she accomplished something. By being there, she had managed to prove that she was something and was hoping that Shinuki and the other Taki citizens there would look at her differently. However, that match backfired on her. What they saw was the demon inside her trying to take over. She had been talking to the Nanabi more and more ever since Naruto suggested it, and Chome wasn't as bad as everyone thought. She was just misunderstood, kind of like her vessel. Yet, the people in Taki couldn't wrap their heads around the fact that Fu wasn't the Nanabi or that the Nanabi wasn't the monster they had thought she was. She quickly learned that Chome seemed like a happy being altogether, even if she was obsessed with luck and a little too energetic at times. Chome was also the only one willing to train Fu a little, giving the green-haired Jinchuriki the ability to grow wings out of the middle of her back and fly, something that Fu immediately began to love. In fact, if there was anything about being a Jinchuriki that she actually enjoyed, it was that ability. However, to the people of Taki and her teammates, this only reinforced their view that Fu was in fact the Nanabi. As she was in the middle of thought, Fu heard a knock on her door and the voice of her teammate Takaru on the other side. "Pack up your things, we're leaving, freak." Fu let out a depressed sigh. She didn't want to go back to Taki. In fact, if there was anywhere she wanted to go, it was Konoha. She had friends there and at least 2 people who knew about her status as a Jinchuriki and didn't care. A few minutes later, she headed down to the lobby of the inn, to find her team, Sensei, and Shibuki discussing something. They shot her a glare and she was beginning to have thoughts about what exactly they were discussing. She didn't like said thoughts, but she would have rather preferred them over returning to Taki, where there was a good chance she would be confined away for being influenced by the Nanabi. They left in the early afternoon of that day and by the end of the day when they stopped to make camp, they were out of the land of lightning. The stop to make camp in the land of frost and were about 2 days from Taki. The next day, they passed through the land of hot water and headed slightly south on the path towards Taki. The farthest south that they would go was actually the Valley of the End, on the border of Fire Country and Rice Country. During the entire trip, she had thought about just taking off, and hoping that no one caught up to her and to be honest, if she flew, she could probably pull it off. However, if she did that, then she would most likely be labeled as missing in one way or another, return to Taki if she was caught. It was at the Valley of the End where what she had been fearing all along happened. As they were crossing the gap, jumping across the 2 statues of Senju Harashima and Uchiha Madara, Shibuki made the jump first with Fu second and her team last. As Shibuki landed, he pushed off the statue back towards Fu with a look of killing intent in his eyes. Before Fu was able to react, Shibuki had driven a kunai deep into her gut, punching her in the face as well. 3 more sharp pains immediately followed as her sensei and teammates drove their kunai into her back, 2 into her lungs and 1 into the liver. They really did do it. They really did kill me, thought Fu as she plunged down the waterfall and into the river below. Shibuki and her team stood at the top of Madara's head looking down with a satisfied look on their faces. To them, they had finally managed to get rid of Taki's demon. Those spots had all been kill spots on the body and they were certain there would be no way she would survive that. About a quarter mile down the river, Fu finally resurfaced, struggling to catch her breath as blood filled her lungs. She managed to keep consciousness for a few seconds before slipping into darkness. She was dying. Unbeknownst to her, Chome had begun filling her system with demonic chakra in hopes of keeping Fu alive long enough to get help. While Chomei and her weren't really that close, the Nanabe had shown Fu some respect for enduring what she had, and the last thing she wanted to see was Fu tossed aside like this to die. Help! Can anyone hear me? The Nanabe called out, letting out a small burst of her chakra to carry her message. Night came and Chomei was doing everything she could to keep Fu alive while the green-haired Kunoichi drifted downstream. It was at this point where she wished she had the regeneration abilities of the Kyuubi. Morning came and Chomei was struggling. If help didn't come today, Fu was most certainly going to die. Help! Can anyone hear me? The Nanabe called out for probably the last time. Chomei, is that you? Chomei's call was responded this time by another Biju who managed to pick up the same frequency. Thankfully for her, it was Kurama, someone who would actually come to her rescue. End flashback, and that's where my story ended. I thought I was dead but apparently not, said Fu. Silence filled the room until a massive key took over. Everyone's attention turned to see a chakra cloak begin to envelop Naruto. This was not Naruto calling on the Kyuubi's chakra. No, this was a pissed-off Biju who wanted nothing more than to rip Taki a new one 9 times over. Shit. Hold him down before he does something stupid, ordered Tsunade. Immediately, everyone there dove on top of Naruto, pinning him to the ground. What the hell are you doing? Shouted Naruto in his mindscape. What does it look like I'm doing? I'm going to go kill those bastards, declared Kurama. Just stop it, ordered Naruto. And why should I do that? I know you want to kill them as much as I do. I can feel it, said Kurama. I'm not saying just to let them go, but if you force your way out now, there's no way in hell Ero Sennin will ever release this seal and you'll never get your freedom, argued Naruto. Just wait. The time will come when we can show them not to mess with us. Kurama let out a slight growl. Fine. I'll hold off for now, but the day will come when I will kill them without mercy. I will feast upon their pathetic village and laugh, as they learn what happens when you piss off a demon. Honestly, I don't blame you. I want a piece of their ass as much as you do. But I'm just saying it would do more harm than good right now, said Naruto. Outside his mindscape, the chakra cloak began to recede and Naruto was let up from being restrained. Hey, sorry about that. Naruto let out a nervous laugh and rubbed the back of his head. For balls pissed. Am I correct? Asked Tsunade. Naruto nodded. With all respects, I think we are all pissed at what Taki tried to pull, spoke Kiba. Akamaru growled as well and then hopped over to Fu's bed and curled up on her lap. Well anyways, that solves that problem, said Tsunade. Huh. What do you mean? Asked Sakura. Is this regarding what's going to happen to Fu? Tsunade nodded. I hate to use this analogy, but it's the best one that fits. One village's trash is another one's treasure. What's that supposed to mean? Fu's not trash, retorted Ino. Tsunade simply laughed, but it was Shino who spoke up. It means that when Taki tried to kill her, they forfeited all rights to her as a shinobi of Takigakure. To them, she is trash that they simply threw away, but to us. So does that mean? Exclaimed Fu, getting an excited smile on her face. Yep. Welcome to Konoha, replied Tsunade. Now, before all of you run off and celebrate, there's a few things we need to get straight. I'll work out some form of living arrangements later, but I assume you're going to take up the duties as a shinobi of this village. Hi, exclaimed a happy Fu. Very well, said Tsunade, pulling out a Konoha head protector from her cloak and tossing it to Fu. You will be starting off as a genin. I would allow you to join in on the final Chunin fights for a chance at a promotion, but you'll be lucky if I even let you out of here to watch the matches. That's fine, she said. I'll also get you assigned to a team here shortly and you can begin once you're cleared for active duty. As for your status as a Jinchuriki, we're going to be keeping that a close secret. The only people who will know are those in this room right now and anyone I deem it's necessary that they know. I don't want to give you the impression that this is a Jinchuriki paradise because it's not. Just ask Fox Boy over there. An angry mob nearly tried to kill him on his last birthday because of his status. Although I will admit that things are getting better for him. However, by keeping your status as a close secret, that should allow you to live a normal life here, explained Tsunade. That's fine. I would be lying if I said I didn't expect that. As long as I've got people who I can actually call a friend, said Fu, looking around at everyone and getting a bunch of smiles in return. I'll be just fine. Good, and I don't want the rest of you talking about it either. Just use some sort of code like Naruto does, said Tsunade. And I'm also going to have Jiraiya take a look at your seal, make sure it's stable so we don't have the Nanabi creating chaos. Actually, she's not that bad. She can be a little energetic and hyper at times, but it's not like she wants to destroy your village or kill anyone, said Fu. Except those bastards in Taki, thought Kurama and Chome at the same time. Looks like we've got two Jinchuriki who won't have too much of a problem controlling their Biju's chakra, thought Tsunade. That may be, but I just need to be sure. I'm also going to have to book you an appointment with Inoichi. I need those memories of what happened documented in case Taki comes poking their heads around. Sadly, all good things must come to an end as Tsunade kicked everyone out so that she could do a proper checkup on Fu's wounds. Still, the tan, mint green-haired Kunoichi couldn't be happier right now. Everyone scattered fairly quick, leaving Naruto and Hinata alone in the middle of the street, which was fine. Naruto actually had to go shopping for clothes as the outfit that he had gotten in Kumo was of fairly low quality and was already starting to wear. Hinata dragged Naruto to the clothing store where she got his jacket that one year and the one that her family frequently shops at. Naruto hesitantly entered, fearing he would get kicked out like at every other store that he went into, but he was surprisingly mistaken. Well, if it isn't Uzumaki Naruto and Hyuga Hinata. Those were some great fights the two of you had, said the store owner. Naruto was slightly confused. He wasn't getting shoved out of the store or charged for even stepping foot inside the store, but it was apparent that the owner had actually witnessed Naruto's fight in Kumo. The owner was a male, probably in his early 30s with short brown hair and a pencil mustache above his upper lip. Don't worry, I'm not going to throw you out. After seeing you stand up to that monster, I want to say that you've earned my respect and I do want to humbly apologize for any misconceptions I may have had in the past. Thanks said Naruto. Sorry. I'm Fazaku Maikigo, owner of the best clothing store in Konoha. And if I'm correct, the origin of that orange jacket you used to wear. By the way, what happened to it? Asked Maikigo. It kind of got destroyed when I took an acid ball for a friend in the exam, said Naruto. I am impressed that it lasted that long and took something like that to destroy it. Well, I would certainly hope so. My clothing lines for shinobi are the best after all. Now, what can I do for you? Asked Maikigo. Are you here for kimonos for the festival of the budding leaf that's in a little over a week away? The festival of the budding leaf was effectively the celebration of the founding of Konoha, and unlike the Kyuubi festival, Naruto was left alone on this night. He just never went because that event was usually an event where families and friends went to. However, he actually had friends that he could go with this year. And based on the way Hinata was squeezing his arm, it was obvious that she really did want to go with him. Actually, I came here to get a new ninja outfit. I kind of got this one after my jacket was destroyed in Kumo, but it's wearing already, said Naruto. Maikigo took a quick look over the blonde. Poor quality indeed. I'm not surprised Kumo would give you something like this, he said. I was wondering if you have this same outfit, only one that won't wear away, asked Naruto. I think I can hook you up with something, said Maikigo as he went in the back room of the shop. At that time, Naruto's eye was drawn to a kimono display, in particular a certain design that was also his size. It was a burnt orange kimono with a black flame pattern at the base that faded into the rest of the kimono. It wasn't a formal kimono or something he would wear if he was ever invited to dinner with Hinata's family. It was a more casual design, perfect for festivals. Find something you like, said Maikigo, appearing out of nowhere with a smile on his face and startling Naruto. Before Naruto could react, Hinata was pulled into him by Maikigo. You know, the festival is a perfect night for couples. This caused the two to blush slightly. Well, I don't know, said Naruto hesitantly. You see, I'm kind of leaving sometime soon after the final matches, but I don't know when. Naruto then did the one thing that will make any man succumb. He looked down at Hinata with her round, pleading eyes and what appeared to be the beginning of a tear. Fine, I'll talk with Ero Sennin and make sure we're not leaving till after the festival, sighed Naruto. Hinata wrapped herself around Naruto with a big smile on her face. Naruto left the store having spent what he used to spend for clothes after all the shops overcharged him, only this time he had 3 pairs of black ninja pants, 3 long-sleeved orange shirts, a black vest that resembled the one he had in Kumo, only it had scroll pockets on the front instead of two large pockets, and he also got the red Uzumaki swirl embroidered onto it. He also ended up with that orange kimono and a happy Hinata after promising to go with her to the festival. All in all, he spent about 4,000 ryo, the same he used to pay, only he got about 4 times as much clothes and they were better quality. Now, all they had to do was find Ero Sennin. He was actually much harder to find. Naruto's first choice to look was at the hot spring, but Jiraiya surprisingly wasn't there. It took nearly an hour of he and Hinata running all over Konoha to find him coming out of the hospital after having his jaw looked at and checking on Fu's seal. Ero Sennin, shouted Naruto. Gaki, growled Jiraiya. He still didn't like Naruto calling him Ero Sennin in public. So what's up with you two? Hey, I wanted to ask if we could leave after the festival that's coming next week, said Naruto. Jiraiya got that perverted look on his face. Oh, and I suppose you two wanted to go, hee, giggled Jiraiya. Gah. Stop thinking like a pervert, shouted Naruto as Hinata began to blush a little. Well, seeing as me and Hinata wouldn't see each other for years, we were hoping you could cut us some slack and not leave until after the festival. Fine, we'll leave 2 weeks from now. Meaning 2 days after the festival. That should give you plenty of time to. Jiraiya glanced towards Hinata and got that perverted look on his face, only flustering Naruto more and turning Hinata red. Damn pervert, thought Naruto. The following day, Fu was sitting in her hospital bed. The doctors had said that she was healing good, and that there was a good chance that she would be permitted to attend the finals in 2 days. She was slightly disappointed that she wouldn't get to participate, but that disappointment completely vanished whenever she turned her head to either look out the window or look over at the stuff on her bedside table. The picture and get well cards were signs that there were people who actually cared for her, something she had lost when Shibi had died. It was actually a funny coincidence when Shino and his father, who was also named Shibi, came to visit earlier. Next to the picture, rested her new headband. For her, it was more than just a headband, it was a sign of hope. Even though she had nearly died, she defied the odds and was able to get away from the hellhole that was Taki. It signified a new chance for her, one where she could have a chance to start over and where there would actually be people who care for her. A knock came on the door and Shino stepped inside. Hello, he said. How are you doing today? Shino, nice of you to stop by, said Fu, letting a slight smile come onto her face. I'm actually doing much better. So what did you stop by for? I came to offer you a proposition, said Shino. Huh? Asked Fu, tilting her head and looking at him with a slightly confused look. What are you talking about? My clan would like to offer you a place to stay at our compound, said Shino. Huh? And why would they do that? Is it because of what's inside me? Asked Fu, now a little taken back. I won't lie and say that is not a reason. They are curious about the Nanabi. I have told you about my clan's practices about us being living hives for our insects, and while that is normally the case for anyone living in our compound, they have agreed to make an exception for you, said Shino. But that is not why I requested that you be allowed to live there. I asked because I see you as a close friend and I felt that it would honestly be best for you. I believe that my clan and I can be beneficial to your development, and also that we are some of the only people in Konoha who may be able to relate to you, besides maybe Naruto. Due to their clan practices of implanting a colony of insects into their children at birth, the Ibarames were often seen as weird and even treated as outcasts by some of the non-shinobi population. However, this didn't bother them as they were supported by the rest of their clan. Still, they had some idea of the way Jinchuriki were treated, even if it was to a lesser extent than an actual Jinchuriki. At first, Fu wasn't quite sure what to think. She didn't want to stay there because of the Nanabi, but began to think differently when Shino gave the second half of his reasons. Are you sure there aren't any other reasons why you want me to live with your family? Asked Fu, almost teasingly. Are there? Yes. To me, you are a close friend and I feel this will only help strengthen our friendship, said Shino. Fu smiled and even managed a slight blush. I guess she saw this as Shino's way of flirting with her. He may seem kind of weird at first, but he's a good guy and even kind of cute, thought Fu. Thank you, I'll consider it. Please do. Now, I am sorry, but I must go and prepare for the matches tomorrow, said Shino before leaving. To say the stands were packed would be an understatement. For Konoha, this was a huge treat for them. They weren't expecting another Chunin exam in almost 2 years, and the most recent exam was interrupted when Orochimaru attacked. What only made things better was that these 10 competitors had done what most couldn't believe. They had pissed Kumo off more than anyone in Konoha, save the Yellow Flash, had done. And it didn't stop there. Word had spread about Naruto's victory over the Jinchuriki of the Rokubi. At first, most people ignored it, but word spread rapidly and now people were beginning to ask the question, who really is Uzumaki Naruto? And for the first time, some people saw the blonde as something other than the demon brat. What some of them saw was a young ninja with a ton of potential, standing against a raging Jinchuriki, and come out the victor. In fact, if there was anyone who was a demon brat, right now, it would probably have to be Hyuga Shinji. If there was one thing that had spread around Konoha faster than news of Naruto's victory, faster than Konoha's triumph, faster than even the last Uchiha's victory, it was the shameful stunt that Shinji pulled. There were people all over Konoha calling for Shinji to be sealed, but the only thing saving him was his main branch status in the Hyuga clan. Of course, the main branch Hyugas always get away with everything. Over in the Lord's box, there were already some preliminary bets going around, even before the matchups had been generated. Most of Lords in the area had dropped everything they were doing to come and watch these exams. After all, who wouldn't pass up this opportunity to gamble with one another? The energy in the stadium suddenly erupted as the 10 Chunin candidates were led onto the field. The time that everyone had been waiting for had arrived. The 10 candidates arrived in the middle of the arena and turned to face the crowds as Genma walked onto the field to begin. Congratulations all of you. You all accomplished something that even I never thought would happen, Genma said to the competitors. Now, you all know the rules. These will be one-on-one matches. Anything goes, but the match ends when I say it ends. As there are 10 of you, there will be 5 matches. Genma held out a sack in front of everyone. In here are 10 numbered balls. Each of you will draw one, and that will determine the matchups. The sack was passed around and everyone took their ball. Now, starting with 1, please read your numbers off. 1, said Shinji. 2, said Hinata. 3, said Sakura. 4, said Tamari. 5, said Lee. 6, said Neji. 7, said Shino. 8, said Gaara. 9, said Naruto. 10, said Sasuke. Very good, said Genma. The matches will go as followed. Match 1, Hyuga Shinji vs Hyuga Hinata. Match 2, Haruno Sakura vs Sabaku no Tamari. Match 3, Rock Lee vs Hyuga Neji. Match 4, Aburame Shino vs Sabaku no Gaara. Match 5, Uzumaki Naruto vs Uchiha Sasuke. As Hiyashi was moving to his seat, he found himself confronted by the 3 Hyuga elders. Hiyashi didn't like this. He could tell the elders were up to something. Hanabi, why don't you go and find our seats? He said, motioning to Hanabi. And so what do I owe this pleasure to? You 3 aren't up to anything, or you? Come now Hiyashi, what would make you think that? Asked Harabi, shaking his son's assumption aside. In the spirit of this event, we felt it would be more interesting to make this match more than just fighting for some silly promotion. Hiyashi could definitely tell something was up. He wasn't the Hyuga head for nothing. He knew how to read people, and right now, the Hyuga elders had trickery and deception written all over their faces. However, he decided that he would at least hear them out. What is it that you have in mind? Asked a cautious Hiyashi. We feel that if Hinata is not able to win this match, then she is not worthy of being in the main branch. While we initially agreed to wait until she was 16, we saw this as a good opportunity to measure her potential. Surely you must agree that if she cannot win here, you would just be wasting your time on her over the next 3 years, said Moriko. So that's the game they are playing, thought Hiyashi. This was simply another one of their ploys to brand Hinata. What do you say, do we have ourselves a wager? Asked Iro. Chapter 57. Rivals, so what do you say, Hiyashi, do we have an agreement? Asked Iro. Hiyashi turned his head away. Normally, he would have immediately backed down the offer, but why wasn't he now? His attention then turned to the field and to his daughter. Why? He actually wanted to accept the wager, but why? After trying so hard to keep Hinata away from being sealed, why did he want to risk it now? So, what do you say? You'd better speak now before the match starts, provoked Harabi. Still hesitant, he continued to look down as his daughter and the other 9 competitors basked in the welcomes and cheers of the audience, something they had been deprived of in Kumo. Was he really thinking of putting his own daughter's future on the line? It was then that Hinata looked up, directly towards him. Now he knew why. For the very first time, he could saw without even the slightest doubt, that he truly believed in her. Long gone was the shy, timid girl that he had seen as a disappointment. What now stood there was a young woman who had complete confidence in her abilities and one he had prayed so hard to finally see blossom. Hiyashi could see the way the elders were drooling over this opportunity. For one reason or another, they held a deep hatred for Hinata. Then again, they never liked her mother either. When the two of them had first started their relationship, the elders had been so adamant about the two ending it, and as a result, they married one another. The first 4 years of their marriage had been difficult, with the clan and the elders always upon them, but they enjoyed their time spent together and loved one another with no limits. And then Hinata was born. She looked just like her mother and honestly, Hiyashi couldn't have been happier. When he began training her, yes he was strict, but he was also fair and loving with Hinata outside of the dojo. All 3 of them were never without a smile on his face. Even after his brother's sacrifice, he was truly grateful that his brother had allowed him to spend more time with his family. 2 years later, Hanabi was born, but at a terrible price. His wife had suffered from complications from giving birth and passed away shortly after. Ever since then, his once warm heart began to grow cold towards Hinata as she reminded him too much of the woman who was taken away from him, and turned his attention to Hanabi, the last gift she ever gave him. For the next 6 years, Hinata's confidence suffered tremendously and he began seeing her as a weak failure. In all honesty, he was maybe a week at most away from having her sealed and banished from the clan until he heard that she had made the final round of the Chunin exams. Following that, bit by bit, the shell that Hinata had encased herself in was slowly peeled away, and the result was directly in front of him. The funny thing though, is that this was all due to a certain blonde-haired boy, who bore a striking resemblance to his late teammate. His thoughts were taken back to when his wife first told him that she was pregnant. He remembered back to one night in particular when he had told Minato and the two of them spent an evening on top of Minato's own head, celebrating and cracking jokes. If there was one that he now remembered the best, it was the two of them joking about the possibility of their kids ending up together, assuming one was a boy and the other was a girl. Knowing Minato, he was probably cracking up right about now, wherever he was. Hiyashi's mind was brought back to the current situation. This was yet another of the many attempts by the elders to separate his family and honestly, he was getting tired of such disgraceful acts. Fine, I'll play their game one last time, thought Hiyashi to himself as he immediately began concocting a plan that would ultimately save his family. Very well, I'll accept your wager, said Hiyashi. The grins on the elders' faces grew to a point where the only one in the village who could beat them in the grin department was Naruto. But, should Hinata win, you will never threaten her with the possibility of being sealed again. You will never seal her, nor will you even think about sealing her. Those are my terms. The elders' smirks disappeared instantly. They had been expecting Hiyashi to counter with something that would simply buy him more time, but not this. While this event was unexpected, they had come prepared to win, so it didn't matter. Either way, they would have her sealed by the end of the day. Harabi pulled a scroll out from inside his robe and handed it to Hiyashi, stating the terms of the wager. Hiyashi scribed in his own terms, full immunity from the seal for Hinata. He then bit his own finger and signed the scroll with his own blood seal as the elders did the same. This way, neither side would be able to back away or try anything afterwards. Very well, said Harabi. Duranji, please go and prepare the brand. Duranji, son of the elder Moriko merely bowed and left. Hiyashi glared at them as he went and took his place next to Hanabi, who was next to Ino and the rest of Team 10 while the remaining Konoha 12 and their senseis were in the row in front of them, including one Yuhi Kurenai who was now shooting him a dirty look. Apparently, she had overheard his little bet, and if Hinata was sealed because of this, he'd have hell to pay. Father, why? Asked a concerned Hanabi. She had read his lips using her own Byakugan to see behind her and knew exactly what Hiyashi had agreed to. Because, I have absolute faith in your sister. She will win and everything will be fine, I promise you, said Hiyashi. You shouldn't make promises you can't keep, Hiyashi, commented Moriko, a few rows back. I don't, replied Hiyashi with a stern tone. Will Hyuga Shinji and Hyuga Hinata please remain down here while the rest of you can proceed to the waiting area, said Genma. So Hinata's the one who gets to kick Shinji's ass. As much as I was hoping to do so, it's best if she does it, thought Naruto. Besides, Naruto looked over towards Sasuke and received the same look back. It was really happening. In just 5 matches. Hinata. Naruto said to her. Hinata merely responded with a look that told Naruto everything. Shinji had hurt and insulted the ones that were closest to her and there was no way she'd let him get away with that. As it was now just Hinata and Shinji down on the field, Genma started the match. I feel honored. I get to be the one to show everyone just how pathetic you really are, taunted Shinji. As I said before, call me whatever you want, but I will not let you get away with what you have done to Neji Nisan, declared Hinata, activating her Byakugan and slipping into the Jusho stance. Shinji did the same, only using the Juken stance as the Jusho was below him. Shinji made the first moves, lashing out with a Juken strike at Hinata, who easily moved out of the way. Shinji sent a few more strikes towards the heiress, who managed to float just barely out of his reach. Shinji struck again with an extended arm and this time, Hinata spun around his attack and struck his upper arm with a wind-infused strike. Shinji managed to move away just in time to avoid another strike. As he gained some room to breathe, he clenched his arm in pain. While he had seen what Hinata's strikes were capable in her previous match, he had not expected them to hurt this bad or do as much damage as they did. Examining his own tenketsu in his upper right arm, it was easy to see that the tenketsu was shattered beyond recognition and even he doubted that he would ever be able to use the tenketsu ever again. Damn, those attacks of hers really are troubling, thought Shinji as he began to realize just what he had gotten himself into. Shinji made the next move, charging towards Hinata, but stopping just before he reached her and unleashing a Kaden on her that was able to knock her back before she could move out of the way. Hinata was able to recover herself with a handspring as Shinji engaged her, gaining the upper hand. This time, Hinata was forced to parry the blows and Shinji was able to get a few tenketsu on her arms. Hinata jumped backwards, faster than Shinji could move forward, buying herself enough room to retaliate. Jusho. Protection of the 8 trigrams. Hinata called out her ultimate defense. Shinji found himself unable to break from his current collision course with the cutting sphere as he collided head-on before being thrown back. This earned him a good number of severe cuts throughout his entire body. Yeah. Go Nisan, cheered Hanabi from the stands, earning a few glares from the Hyuga elders. Hanabi simply put an innocent look on her face. Catching this out of the corner of her eye, Ino was now resisting every urge to scream out, kawaii, and pinch the younger Hyuga's cheeks. Shinji, in pain, forced himself to his feet. He needed something or else there was no way we was going to win. Thankfully, he still had his trump card. Hehe, this ought to be interesting, he said, making a one-handed seal that every Hyuga was familiar with. Activate. What's he doing? He knows the seal won't work on Neji Nisan. Thought Hinata as she frantically turned around to a scream echoing from the contestant box. Neji, shouted Naruto, Lee, Sakura, and well, everyone who realized what was going on. However, mere moments after the pain started it stopped, but the activation of the seal had achieved its purpose. Juken. 8 trigrams, 64 palm, shouted Shinji as he took this opportunity to strike Hinata with 64 rapid consecutive strikes. Hinata, shouted Naruto from the box. Hiyashi looked over at the elders, who had massive grins plastered on their face. That was a dirty trick, playing on Hinata's concern for her brother figure like that. Before Hinata could collapse to the ground, Shinji lashed out with a chakra-laced palm straight to her chest, sending a burst of chakra through Hinata's heart. Hinata dropped to her knees and began coughing up blood. I told you it was worthless. Proctor, I suggest you call the match now before her condition gets any worse, said Shinji, noticing her heart began to convulse irregularly. Genma stood silent. He very much wanted to smack Shinji hard after that little stunt. No. Hinata shouted out, coughing up blood. I will not give. Pathetic. You're a failure now, and you'll always be a failure. I wouldn't be surprised if you're sealed after this match. Perhaps then, you'll finally learn your place, mocked Shinji. No, it's time, you learn. Yours. With those words, Hinata disappeared in a puff of smoke. What? Shouted Shinji. He had completely forgotten about Hinata's ability to use shadow clones from the prelims. Hinata came dashing towards Shinji from the trees that lined the outside, where she had been hiding while her clone was toying with him. By the time she was within the 50 meters range that Shinji could see the full 360 in, he was out of time to react and Hinata slammed a massive wind-infused palm straight into his stomach, which caused Shinji to bend over and clutch it in pain. Yeah. Kick his ass Hinata, shouted Naruto, Kiba, and many others with similar comments. Where have I seen that trick before? Asked Neji. He had recovered quickly from the seal as it had only been activated for a mere few seconds. Seriously? Asked Sakura. That's practically the same move Naruto used on you during the last Chunin exams. Everyone looked momentarily at Naruto, who had a huge grin on his face as he rubbed the back of his head. Although you actually managed to counter it with your Kaden. Jusho. 8 trigrams, 64 palms, called out Hinata, unleashing the Hyuga move, only adding in wind chakra to the attacks. The results were more devastating than anyone could have ever imagined. Shinji collapsed to the ground, his entire body in immense pain as he felt the chakra circulation throughout his body dwindle to almost nothing. Hiyashi looked down from the stands and couldn't help but manage a slight smile. He focused his dojutsu on Shinji's chakra network, or at least what was left of it. While not all of Hinata's strikes had connected with Tenksu, all of them hit some point in his chakra network, shredding it to the point where there was barely enough chakra flowing through his chakra network that his body would be able to perform only the basic functions. Hiyashi counted 45 Tenketsu completely destroyed, 10 Tenketsu heavily damaged, and 10 more places along the chakra network where the connections had been severed. However, if there was one area that had sustained heavy damage, it was Shinji's tendon. That first massive chakra burst that Hinata had sent through his stomach hit the tendon, the very core of a person's chakra, shredding many of the chakra pathways that wrapped around the very center of Shinji's chakra. There was one thing Hiyashi knew for sure, at the very best, his days as a shinobi were over. Not even Tsunade had the ability to heal the damage his chakra network had sustained, assuming she would be willing to. Winner, Hyuga Hinata, called out Genma as medics came to collect the broken Shinji. Roaring applause was heard throughout the entire stadium as Hinata was not sure what to do now. Hiyashi practically had to force himself not to look behind him at the Hyuga elders' faces, or else he would have made a huge scene by bursting out in a fit of laughter, unbefitting of a Hyuga. Hinata looked up towards the contestant box to see Naruto dangling upside down with Neji and Sasuke trying to reel him back up. Needless to say, Naruto had a little too much energy at that point and sent himself flying over the edge of the rail. Sakura was on her way down as Temari simply floated over top the dangling Naruto, gliding to the arena on her fan. Despite everyone's celebrations, that was only the first match and there was more yet to come. The stadium quieted down as Sakura entered the arena. What took you so long? I was afraid I'd have time to go buy my own pink wig, taunted Temari a bit. You have a problem with pink? Asked a slightly ticked Sakura. She was getting tired of everyone questioning her hair. Oh dear, she made fun of the hair, commented Haruno Kazashi from a few rows back of the Konoha 12. Everyone turned to see Sakura's parents but was shocked to see that it was her father that Sakura got the pink hair from. Last time someone did that, I was afraid we'd have to remodel the block. Oh come now dear, just be quiet and watch our daughter, commented Sakura's mother, Mebuki. Shikamaru sighed. Troublesome, he said. What was that? Shouted Temari from the arena, directing her voice directly at Shikamaru. Begin, called Genma before this turned into an all-out catfight. Sakura made the first move, running at Temari with a cocked fist and driving it forward at the Suna blonde. Temari just smirked and moved her collapsed fan to block. While she was nowhere near Lee's taijutsu level, she could handle herself against some little, genjutsu using girl. That is until Sakura's fist made contact with Temari's fan and a shock wave ripped through the Suna Kunoichi's body and sent her sliding back a few feet. Damn, what the hell was that? She hits harder than that Lee kid, thought Temari as she opened her fan before Sakura could make her next move. Temari made a quick spinning motion that whipped up a tornado that threw Sakura back away from Temari and resulted in a few minor cuts on her skin as a result of the wind. Sakura immediately rebounded and threw a volley of Sanbon towards Tamari just as the blonde stopped spinning. Tamari, however, saw this coming and whipped her fan just in time, creating a wall of wind to knock away Sakura's attack. Futon. Tornado Scythe. Tamari swung her fan, creating a rather large tornado that twisted and ran towards Sakura. Kaiten. Great Fireball Jutsu, shouted Sakura, blowing a large fireball that shot towards the tornado and intercepted Tamari's attack, resulting in a flaming whirlwind that soon dispersed as the two attacks cancelled each other out. When Sakura could see through the flames, Tamari was gone. Before Sakura could get a bearing on her opponent, she found herself blasted by a strong gust of dust and sand that blinded her. Futon. Sickle Weasel Technique. Tamari's gust of cutting wind caught Sakura unaware, blasting her into the air. As Sakura fell to the ground, Tamari smirked. She wouldn't be getting up after that. Looking over, Sakura was out like a log, literally. Tamari looked up to see Sakura coming down upon her and Tamari collapsed her fan to block the incoming fist as she braced herself with chakra. Sakura's fist met Tamari's fan in a downward strike, sending yet another painful shockwave through the kunoichi and causing the ground to buckle beneath Tamari. Damn, Billboard Bros got some strength, commented Ino. She had agreed to stop calling Sakura by her nickname, but old habits die hard. Troublesome, replied Shikamaru, earning a ticked-off expression from Ino. Tamari had managed to get away from Sakura. That last blow had hurt and she could feel it in her legs. Both opponents were staring at each other from across the crater in the ground. Sakura merely let out a small smirk as she charged head-on towards Tamari. She doesn't think she can win like this, does she? Thought Tamari as she used the same move from before, spinning and creating a tornado around her that blew Sakura back. Only it didn't blow Sakura back. As Sakura made contact with the wind, she burst apart into countless Sakura blossoms that began to swirl with the tornado Tamari had created. A few of the Sakura blossoms approached Tamari, who started off by blowing them away with her own fan. Only, instead of blowing them away, the blossoms split into even more petals. Tamari felt a few stinging sensations on her arm and before she knew it, she collapsed to the ground unable to move her body and the flurry of blossoms stopped with Sakura standing behind her and smiling. That one's new, kind of, commented Kakashi. We took her cherry blossom blizzard and upgraded it. It was originally a C rank genjutsu but I'd say it's now B or maybe even B+. It's much harder to dispel and every failed attempt at dispelling it only multiples the number of cherry blossoms, commented Kurenai. That technique still has some potential to be developed even further though. She really does have some amazing genjutsu potential. If she can find some way to train that while training her medical jutsu over the next few years, damn. Sakura's got a lot of work cut out for her it looks like, thought Kakashi. Let me know if you want to trade students anytime, Kakashi. I'm sure Kiba won't mind, said Kurenai. Hey. That's mean, Kurenai-sensei, retorted Kiba. Everyone laughed at the Jonin's little joke while Kiba pouted a little. Kurenai-sensei, don't be so mean to Kiba, defended Hinata, who was standing at the top of the stands. And there she is. Our little winner, said Kurani, going up to Hinata and giving her student a hug. Nisan, shouted Hanabi as she ran to her sister. Hinata made her way down the stairs, either oblivious of or just simply ignoring the looks the elders were shooting her. She took a seat next to Kurenai and in front of her father. Hiyashi looked down at his daughter, and then over to Hanabi. He had saved one, and he already knew how to save the other. It was only a matter of time before the elders tried to make their next move and he would make his. Back in the arena, Genma declared Sakura the winner as Tamari was unable to move due to the paralytic poison in her system. For Sakura, there was a loud applause, not as much for Hinata, but enough where she didn't know what to do besides just stand there and smile. Yash. Sakura's flames burn as bright as ever, shouted Lee. It was time, his match was finally here and it was against the one person he had been dying to fight ever since he became a part of Team Guy, his own eternal rival Neji. Neji had already made his way down to the arena the moment he saw that Sakura had Tamari and Lee followed shortly after the match was called. Up in the stands, everyone could feel the tension around them rise. The source of this tension, Guy. Guy, is everything okay? Asked Kakashi. Tears began streaming from Guy. I've waited for this day to come ever since I got my team. My students will finally battle in a contest of youth that knows no bounds. Today, they will burn brighter than the sun itself as their youths soar to even greater heights. If that happens, they'd probably burn down the village, commented Kakashi. Guy clenched his fist and a sparkle appeared in his eye at the time when Lee and Neji took the field. Lee. Neji. Lee turned up towards the stand. Guy-sensei. Oh hell no, thought Neji. One Team Guy group hug was enough, and that was to convince Lee to get the surgery. Unless Lee was going to have another life-risking operation, there was no way he was going to get in the middle of the two green-clad shinobi. Yash. Now show everyone your spectacle of youth, shouted Guy, causing everyone within hearing distance being the 5 elemental nations and even a few continents beyond that to sweat drop. Neji. He is right. I have waited for this day since the very moment I was placed on your team, declared Lee. I look forward to a most excellent match. I have to, Lee. I admit I was wrong in the past, but now I understand. I see you now as a worthy rival and have been looking forward to the time when I can prove to myself just how strong I have become, said Neji. He then pointed at Lee's legs. Take them off. What? But Guy-sensei told me never to, replied Lee. I don't care what Guy-sensei said. I expect nothing short of your very best, so take them off, said Neji. Lee, unsure of what to do but after looking at Neji, he understood. As such, Lee bent down and removed his weights, throwing them aside as if they were nothing. The weights crashed into the ground, shaking the stadium upon impact and leaving a horrified expression on almost everyone's face. They knew Guy was extreme, but those weights were just plain ridiculous. Begin, said Genma, jumping out of the way before he could get caught in between them. Lee and Neji both assumed their positions and it was Lee who made the first move. Lee dashed off towards Neji at speeds that only a shinobi could follow. Konoha Senpu, shouted Lee as he lashed out with a sweeping high kick. Neji blocked Lee's initial kick and used that as a springboard to push him over top of Lee's lower kick and Lee himself. Neji struck at Lee with a few Juken strikes that Lee barely parried. Lee saw a slight opening at Neji and struck with a hard fist. Neji barely managed to block, but this resulted in him skidding back a few feet. Immediately, Lee was off. He began running around Neji, becoming a blur that looked as if he was everywhere. While doing so, Neji kept his calm, relying on his Byakugan to keep an eye on where Lee would be coming from. Then, Lee made his move. Kaden, called out Neji, catching Lee in his defense before Lee could land a blow. This sent Lee flying back towards the wall. 8 trigrams vacuum palm. As his rotation came to a halt, Neji thrust his hand forward, sending a blast of compressed chakra towards Lee. Lee just barely managed to push off the wall in time to avoid the small crater that Neji's attack made. Now I actually do see what you were talking about now, Hiyashi-sama, commented Asuma, referring to when Hiyashi was inquiring about Hinata and Naruto's futon, pressure palm. You're absolutely certain that there were no wind users in your clan before. Hiyashi honestly wasn't so sure. There never have been any wind users in our clan, replied Harabi with a harsh voice as he glared at Hiyashi, and then down at Hinata. Hiyashi could tell that something wasn't quite right about that statement though. I'll look into it, Asuma-san, replied Hiyashi. Back in the arena, Lee and Neji had been engaging one another in taijutsu for a few minutes now and they were going at each other hard. Neji had landed a few palm thrusts on Lee, but at the same time, Lee's attacks were slowly beginning to wear on Neji. Neji had either managed to dodge or parry most of Lee's attacks, but the ones that he was forced to block were beginning to strain his arm, even after reinforcing it with chakra. Lee used Neji's next palm thrust to push him away from Neji, a considerable distance for him to prepare himself for what was next. Lee began unwrapping his bandages and everyone who knew Lee knew what was coming. Gate of opening, open. Lee shouted, opening the first of the 8 gates. He took off towards Neji at blinding speeds that only a few select people in the audience could see him. Sasuke even needed his Sharingan now to be able to clearly watch Lee. Before Neji could react, Lee slammed a foot into Neji's stomach sending him into the air. Lee then shadowed and wrapped Neji up in bandages before he began the spiraling descent into the ground. Damn. I need something quick or he's going to spiral me into the ground, thought Neji. Wait. Spiral. As Lee and Neji barreled towards the ground, Neji unleashed a strong burst of chakra from his tenketsu. Kaden. The blue dome of chakra managed to form and Lee was forced away from Neji, throwing him across the stadium and into the far wall as Neji still continued to fall towards the ground, creating a crater when he and the Kaiden met the ground beneath them. Neji struggled to pick himself out of the crater. The Kaiden had broken most of the fall, but he still sustained some damage. First, there was his right arm. That arm had taken quite a beating already, and the way in which he landed, he was pretty sure it was fractured, if not close to broken already. There was also a limp in this right leg, indicating that his hip was injured as well. The last of the more significant injuries was a trickle of blood coming from beneath the side of his forehead protector, indicating some sort of head injury. Lee wasn't much better off. Normally, he would have disengaged Neji just before impact and landed safely. However, Neji's Kaiden threw him off in an uncontrollable flight directly into a stone wall. Like Neji, Lee struggled to pick himself out of the hole in the wall and the entire stadium was on edge. Neji, you truly are a worth rival. You have found a way to counter my initial lotus and use it against me. Forgive me, Guy-sensei, but I must use it. I must prove to everyone that I can be a splendid ninja, thought Lee. Neji looked on as Lee gathered himself and a massive chakra pulse was felt throughout the stadium as Lee opened the next few gates. Gate of healing, open. Gate of life, open. Gate of pain, open. Lee's skin turned red and many people gasped. Guy-sensei, is Lee really going to? Asked a concerned Tenten. Guy let out a breath. Looks like it. That counter of Neji's took a lot out of both of them. Lee's always seen Neji as his rival and with this match, they are willing to push each other to the very limit. I wouldn't be surprised if it ended here. Please let it end here. While Guy wanted to see his students fight to his very best, they were already pushing themselves way past a safe limit. That baka. I told him no more than one gate. Shouted Tsunade. She was still monitoring Lee's progress after the operation and was still concerned about how much stress his body could take at this point. One gate was pushing it, but four. Neji took the time that Lee was using to open the gates to center himself and gather chakra. Lee shot towards Neji, at speeds that made his previous speed look like a turtle. He shot his fist towards Neji as Neji unleashed his attack. Kaiden. A smaller, yet more condensed and stronger sphere of chakra enveloped Neji as he spun and a massive explosion ensued that sent a blur flying back into wall. Hyuga-sama, what was that? That wasn't Neji's normal Kaiden, commented Guy. You're right, it wasn't. Ever since Naruto bested Neji in the previous exams, Neji has been constantly looking to improve himself in the Hyuga Absolute Defense. What you just saw was the result of his endeavor, explained Hiyashi. He gives his chakra an earthen nature before expelling it, hardening and reinforcing it. He also condenses it as well for added strength, which is why the dome is much smaller than normal. His normal Kaiden most likely would have failed to an attack of that power, but down in the arena, Neji stood in the middle of a large crater that was created by the explosion. He was panting heavily and down on his knees. When the dust settled at the wall, Lee was lying in a pile of rubble unconscious as Genma came to check on Lee. I declare Hyuga Neji the winner, said Genma. Cheers erupted through the stands. That had been a good match and both fighters were worthy of praise afterwards. Neji collapsed even further, his entire body exhausted and in pain. Lee, the one who he used to see as a failure who should just give up on being a ninja, had managed to push him, the Hyuga prodigy, to the very edge. Had this fight dragged on for just a moment longer, it was very likely that Neji would have lost. He had used up the remaining chakra in that last defense, his body was shaken from the following explosion, and he was pretty sure he had a broken arm amongst other things. We will be taking a 30-minute intermission to repair the field, announced Genma as a few ninja came onto the arena, most likely Earth users. The previous matches, primarily Lee and Neji's, had torn the field to shreds with a series of craters and uplifted ground. Guy was down in the arena moments later as he came to Neji's side and placed a hand on Neji's shoulder before helping Neji over to Lee. How is he? Asked Guy. Tsunade had come down to check on Lee's condition to make sure no permanent damage had been done to the bushy-eyebrowed genin. He's lucky. Nothing permanent was done, but he's not going to be leaving the hospital for a few weeks while he recovers, diagnosed Tsunade. UHG, Guy-sensei, Tsunade-sama, Neji. Lee said as he slowly regained consciousness. I'm sorry Lee, but this match is mine, replied Neji. I see, Guy-sensei. I am sorry, replied Lee. Nonsense. I'm so proud of you, Lee. You fought with all your heart and you proved yourself out there today. Shouted Guy with tears flowing anime style from his eyes. Lee. You pushed me farther than anyone has ever pushed me. You fought an excellent match today and I am proud that I was your opponent. You truly are becoming a splendid ninja, said Neji. Neji, said Lee, looking straight at his teammate. Yash. I will redouble my training efforts and next time we meet, I will come out victorious. If I do not, I will. Can it? Growled Soond. You won't be leaving the hospital for the next few weeks while your body recovers. Don't worry, Lee, rest today. Your youthful flames have burned so bright today. Rest them now, and we will make them burn even brighter tomorrow. Declared Guy. Guy-sensei. Lee. Neji began backing away slowly. Guy-sensei. Lee. Before Neji could get far enough away, Guy had him in a headlock as he and Lee embraced one another with an ocean sunset in the background. Poor Neji, sighed Tenten as she witnessed Neji getting caught in the very center of whatever sort of genjutsu Guy and Lee were creating. Every ninja in the stands was trying their best to dispel it, but to no avail. Neji and Lee were taken away to receive medical treatment and the Earth users began their work on repairing the stadium. It was at around this time that Hyuga Duranji had returned to the stadium. Harabi-sama, I have prepared the sealing brand for Hinata. What? Shouted everyone within hearing distance. The most shocked of them all was Hinata herself. The Jonin were glad that Naruto wasn't around to hear that, or else Konoha might very well be dealing with a second Kyuubi attack this very moment. Seal, replied Hinata. She knew that if she was sealed, just about any hopes she had of being with Naruto were gone. She looked pleadingly towards her father. Had he really just given the go-ahead to have her sealed? Doranji's attention was turned to the elders, who were fuming at the very thought. Thank you Doranji, but that won't be necessary. However, if you would modify the seal for a male, about a year older than Hinata, then that would be perfect, said Hiashi. Father. What's going on? Are you really having me sealed? Asked Hinata, as a few tears came to her eyes. Hiashi sent a reassuring smile at her daughter. No, not today and not ever, said Hiashi, producing the scroll that had the bet between he and the elders. Hinata read it over and was shocked at her father. I had absolute faith in you. And I was getting tired of those old fools trying to break up my family. I wouldn't say that Hiashi. Seeing as Hinata can no longer be sealed, we are forced to have Hanabi sealed. After all, no family can have more than one unsealed child, said Iro, turning his attention towards a particular brown-haired Hyuga girl. No, gasped Hinata as she looked towards her younger sister, who now had a horrified look on her face. Iro smirked. Of course, we could always spare Hanabi, should Hinata volunteer herself willingly. Even after they had lost the bet, they would get her. There was no way the kind and gentle Hinata would let her sweet little sister be sealed. Hiashi merely laughed at this, something that was rarely seen from a Hyuga. Check and mate. You really wouldn't seal the heir to the Hyuga clan now would you? Laughed Hiashi. Hey, not bad at all, said Shikamaru. If anyone got what Hiashi was thinking, it was the Nara Chunin. What are you talking about, Hiashi? Barked Moriko. You know exactly what I'm talking about. After all, you've been asking me to make a decision for the past 4 years. I've decided and as of now, Hanabi is and will be the heir to the clan, explained Hiashi. What? But that's Nissan's position, argued Hanabi. It was true that she did in fact want to be the heir of the clan, but Hanabi wasn't willing to let it be taken away from her sister like this. All this time, poor Hinata's head was spinning. First she thought her father was proud of her for becoming strong. Then she finds out that the elders have prepared the sealing brand for her. Afterwards, her father tells her that she is not going to be sealed and that he made a deal to grant her immunity from being sealed. Just moments after that, the elders claim they're going to seal Hanabi unless she takes Hanabi's place. And then her father declares Hanabi the clan heir, right in front of her. By doing so this would mean that she gets branded into the branch house, but, oh. Now she got it. Hinata rested her hand on Hanabi's head. Don't worry Hanabi-chan. Everything will be alright. Besides, you were always the one who wanted to be the future clan head anyways, said Hinata. It was true. Hinata honestly didn't care about becoming clan head. The only reason she didn't just forfeit it willingly was because she would be sealed and any chances at her having a future with a particular blonde would be sealed away with her. But Nisan, if I'm clan head, then that means you're going to be, rambled Hanabi until Hinata held up the blood-bound contract in front of her. Oh. Wait. What the hell is going on? Shouted Kiba. Hiashi grumbled. He still hadn't fully forgiven Kiba for that one incident, although things were looking better between those two. Fine, I'll explain. The bet I made before Hinata's fight stated that if she won, she would be granted full immunity from being branded. If she lost, then she would be branded. I decided to accept, because I can honestly say that, for the first time, I have absolute faith in Hinata's abilities, and I was getting tired of the Elder's constant attempts to have her branded. Seeing as Hinata won, she's now immune from being sealed. Now, up until this point, I have not officially declared the clan heir. It should have gone to Hinata by birthright, but because of my foolish actions, that birthright was stripped from her and she would have to earn it when she turned 16 if I had not declared a clan heir by then. However, I have decided now that the elders were right about something and that Hanabi would make the better clan heir, thus making her immune from being sealed. So, in other words, thought Kiba for a moment. The elders won't be laying their fingers on either of my daughters anytime soon, said Hiashi, sending a glare that only a father who was protective of his daughters could send. Hiashi had the elders by their rotten tongues and they did the only thing they could do now, make a hasty retreat back into whatever hole they crawled out of and scheme up their next plot. I see, I shall go put away the brand right away sir, said Duranji. Like I said, that won't be necessary. Someone will be sealed, but they have done everything to deserve it, said Hiashi. Everyone knew who Hiashi was referring to. He then pulled Duranji away for a moment. I need to ask you a question and I need you to answer me honestly. Your wife is pregnant, isn't she? Hi, Hiashi-sama, responded Duranji. He had honestly been hoping to hide that fact for a while. And you do in fact love your family and the child your wife is about to bear, am I correct? Asked Hiashi. Duranji seemed very upset by Hiashi's question. Why would you even ask that? Of course I love my family. He soon realized where Hiashi was getting at. His wife was currently only 2 months pregnant with their second child. A second child in the Hyuga main branch meant that he would have to have one of his children branded at some point. You see where I'm getting at, don't you? Asked Hiashi. Duranji nodded. You were always hesitant when following your father's orders, but you did so because he is your father. Perhaps it's time you start doing what you want to do. You love your family, I know you do. And I know you don't want to see anything happen to them, said Hiashi, placing a hand on Duranji's shoulder. Change is coming. I can feel it. And when it comes, I would very much appreciate your support. Hiashi began to walk away, leaving the main branch Hyuga to his thoughts. Hiashi-sama, said Duranji in a quiet tone. Hiashi paused for a brief moment. Will my family be able to remain just that? A family. If everything works out right, then yes, replied Hiashi with firm voice. If whatever's coming will help my family, then I'll help, replied Duranji. Good. For now, nothing will happen. I'm still missing a big piece. But be prepared, that time will come shortly, replied Hiashi as he returned to his family. Both Hyunta and Hanabi were still celebrating their father's victory over the elders. Perhaps now, they could truly act like sisters without worry about the other. Moments later, the stadium began to cheer as Genma announced that the fourth match would now be starting. In a flurry of sand and bugs, Gaara and Shino took the field. Oh good, I didn't miss it, commented Fu, who had just arrived at the stadium, being escorted by Shizune. The two had managed to pick up Sakura somewhere along the way through the stadium. Yeah, Lee and Neji did a number to the field and they had to take an intermission, commented Kiba. How have the matches gone so far? Asked Fu. Hinata here won hers, said Kurenai, pointing to a smiling Hinata. Sakura won hers as well against Tamari. And Neji won his, but barely. But Shino's opponent is going to be hard. I honestly wouldn't want to go up against Gaara, added Kiba. Genma looked at the two competitors before signaling the start of the match. For what seemed like the first minute, the two just stared at each other in silence as everyone anticipated the first move. Shino and Gaara just looked at each other before dispersing in a cloud of insects and sand. Both were a bug and sand clone, respectively, and both had been thinking the same thing. The real Shino and Gaara came out from their hiding spots as they were now surrounded by their sand and bugs. Gaara lashed out with his sand which Shino found himself dodging. Over the past months, if there was one thing Shino had been working on, it was his agility and ability to better defend himself, as that was probably his biggest weakness. While Shino was doing this, his insects were sent towards Gaara, who was fending them off with blasts of sand. What was happening here was that Shino's bugs were sucking the chakra out of the sand, rendering it useless for Gaara until he could re-infuse it with chakra. However, at the same time, the blows Shino's insects were taking from Gaara's sand would kill a few of them each time they got his. Shino continued his backpedaling until he ran into a wall of sand that Gaara had established behind him, cutting the Aburame off. Shino soon found him encased in Gaara's sand cocoon. "I suggest you surrender," said Gaara, making a fist and squeezing slightly on his sand for emphasis. "It would seem you have captured me, but you can never be sure," said Shino as the sand surrounding him began to crumble away. The moment Shino found himself captured, the insects he kept on himself immediately went to work draining the chakra out of Gaara's sand to a point where the sand was weak enough to break free from. "Ninpo, hidden beetle sphere," called out Shino as a mass of his insects erupted from ground beneath Gaara and surrounded him, encasing Gaara in a sphere of insects. "Sand shuriken," called out Gaara as countless sand blasts came shooting out from around Gaara, knocking Shino's insects away and even catching Shino with one or two. Before Shino was able to surround Gaara with his insects, Gaara had surrounded himself with enough sand and acted quick enough to use it to repel the insects. Had he have waited too long, Shino's insects would have rendered the sand useless. Gaara had to admit that Konoha did in fact have some worthy adversaries. However, he was ready to end this match. Gaara slammed his hands onto the ground beneath him. Sand tsunami. As he called out his next move, a massive tidal wave of sand ripped from the ground underneath Gaara and crashed towards Shino, catching him and all of his bugs in the wave of sand. "Desert burial," shouted Gaara as he pushed down onto the ground, compressing the sand and crushing almost everything beneath it. Out of the sand rose another sand cocoon. That sand tsunami wasn't meant to kill Shino, just the bugs, so Gaara simply captured Shino. "I'll say it again. Surrender or your insects won't be the only things I crush." Sensing something behind him, Gaara immediately turned around to see Shino running towards him. Shino's last remaining bugs shot out of his arm and towards Gaara, who swatted them away and wrapped the real Shino up in sand. He then opened the top of the sand coffin that he initially thought had Shino in it, only to reveal that he had captured a bug clone. Before Gaara could crush the bug clone, Shino spoke. "Wait, I surrender," said Shino as Gaara stopped himself before crushing Shino's insects and releasing them from his grasp. "I thank you for not crushing them. They are the last of my hive and are worth more than this match." "I see," said Gaara as he gathered his sand back into his gourd. "That was a good match. You were most certainly a stronger opponent than most I have faced." "Winner, Sabaku no Gaara," announced Genma as the audience cheered. "So, what do you think?" asked Asuma. "Shino fought a good match and it was obvious, but that Gaara's just too strong of an opponent," commented Kakashi. As Gaara and Shino cleared the field, Naruto and Sasuke looked at each other one last time before heading down. It really did come down to this. All their past contests had been just that, contests. Who could climb the tree first, who could learn a jutsu first. But this, a full-out battle between the two of them. They would finally find out who was truly the stronger. "So what are you thinking, Kakashi?" asked Asuma. "They are your students after all." Kakashi thought for a moment while everyone tuned towards the one-eyed Jonin to get his opinion. "If I know those two, they'll probably end up killing each other. This should be interesting." Kakashi smiled and a horrified look overtook everyone else's face. Couldn't he have a little more faith in his students? They saw Naruto and Sasuke take the field in a deafening shriek, that only a Banshee mother would be proud of, ripped through the stands. Its source, Sasuke's fan club. These were the useless fangirls who had flunked out of the academy after realizing their precious Sasuke would no longer be there. However, now they were about to watch their precious Sasuke put Naruto Baka in his place, just like every spar from the academy, or so they thought. "So this is really happening," said Naruto as he turned to face his opponent. "Naruto. Sasuke called out and their eyes met. I acknowledge you, I have always acknowledged you, which is why out of everyone, you're the one I've wanted to fight the most. You'd better not hold back, Dobi. Naruto smiled. And if there was anyone who I wanted to acknowledge me, it was you. It's about time we get this chance to settle things. You'd better not disappoint me, Tem. Begin, called out Genma. Before he could get out of the way, Naruto and Sasuke had bolted towards each other at speeds that even Lee would be jealous of. Naruto threw the first punch, which Sasuke blocked with his palm and retaliated with a knee that Naruto blocked with his free arm. Sasuke then quickly placed his foot down for balance and used the other foot to kick Naruto on the side. Naruto saw this coming and placed his now free hand in the path of Sasuke's sweeping kick, removing his fist from Sasuke's hand and using the kick to disengage the two of them. Sasuke pulled out a kunai, Naruto doing the same, and they went at it again as the sound of clanging metal was heard throughout the stadium. Sasuke blocked Naruto's following swipe, but leaned back just in time to avoid the real attack. Naruto wasn't using a regular kunai, he was using the tri-pronged kunai, enhanced with wind chakra. As a result, Naruto's kunai sliced clean through Sasuke's kunai, and nearly his head if it hadn't been for his reaction time and the Sharingan. Now it was Sasuke's turn to disengage. Damn. That kunai's going to be a pain in the ass, thought Sasuke, looking at the foot-long wind blade coming out of Naruto's kunai. That weapon gave Naruto an advantage at close range as a wind blade wasn't something Sasuke could block all that easily. Sasuke was already thinking of a way to get that kunai from Naruto. He knew Naruto had more than one, 3 if he remembered correctly, but if he could get one off of Naruto, then that would take away Naruto's weapon advantage. Sasuke unleashed a few shuriken at Naruto and Naruto grinned when Sasuke's attack missed. But then Naruto remembered that Sasuke would normally use ninja wire with his shuriken in this case and swiped with his kunai, cutting the wire that Sasuke had attacked to the shuriken before he could do anything. Sasuke merely grinned as he flicked his finger and one of the shuriken that Naruto had not cut wrapped itself around Naruto's kunai. Sasuke then tugged back on the string, pulling the tri-pronged kunai from Naruto's grasp and into his own. Naruto growled as Sasuke smirked. I see, so that was your target, commented Naruto as he pulled out his second tri-pronged kunai. I will admit, these knives are pretty nice. Perhaps I should keep this one, said Sasuke, ticking Naruto off a little. He channeled some chakra into his and making it glow red hot. He had made sure to use fire chakra in the knife instead of lightning due to the elemental advantage fire has over wind. The two ran towards each other again, chakra pulsing through their kunai. The two kunai clashed and the mixing of wind chakra and fire chakra sent a flare straight into Naruto's face. Sasuke used this distraction to give Naruto a good strong kick in the stomach, sending his blonde rival kidding back. By the time Naruto got to his feet, Sasuke was going through hand seals and Naruto raced through his own. Kaden. Fire Dragon Bullet. Futon. Wind Dragon Bullet. The two jutsu met in the middle, creating a giant fireball that forced the two opponents back. The audience, unless they were an Aburame who already wore sunglasses, was forced to shield their eyes at the intensity of the blaze in the middle. Sasuke looked on as the blaze began to die but was caught when a barrage of over 100 shuriken hurled towards him. Unlike most ninja, who would normally panic at this point, Sasuke kept his calm, analyzing the incoming shuriken shadow clone jutsu with his Sharingan. With a few quick motions of the chakra kunai, Sasuke managed to block or deflect every single kunai that was heading towards him. Eek! Sasuke's the best, shrieked his fan club after Sasuke had shown how smooth he was in blocking Naruto's assault. Ino and Sakura looked over towards the hopeless fangirls and sweat dropped. Please tell me we were never like that, asked Sakura to Ino. Are you kidding me? You two were the queens of the fangirls, commented Kiba. That was probably something he shouldn't have said as he felt two hard fists slam into the top of his head. Ino and Sakura smiled at each other and turned their attention back to the fight. On the other side of the fireball, Naruto grinned. He knew no one that had taken that jutsu head on and made it out completely unscathed, so it came as a surprise when Sasuke came bursting through the smoke in the middle and knocked Naruto to the ground, hard. Sasuke placed the kunai near Naruto's throat and Naruto could feel the heat radiating off of it. Looks like I win, commented Sasuke. Yeah. The day that happens will be the day I kiss your ass, retorted Naruto, disappearing in a puff of smoke. Sasuke skied. To be honest, he was expecting something like that. Now the question was, where is the real Naruto? He looked around, trying to pick out any source of chakra around the field, but the only other source of chakra was the knife he was carrying. Immediately, Sasuke's eyes snapped open as he tossed the knife aside. However, he was too late. Before the knife could leave his hands, it poofed back into Naruto and Sasuke felt a fist connect with his face. Wait. That transformation wasn't a genjutsu, stated a surprised Kurenai. You're right. Which probably explains why he had such a hard time learning a jutsu as simple as a transformation, commented Iruka. I recently discovered the reason why Naruto could never pull a normal transformation back in the academy was because his chakra reserves were always too large to allow for a jutsu that only required such a small amount of chakra. I was ecstatic the moment Naruto actually pulled off a decent transformation, but I had no idea until I brought him back for show and tell day that his transformation was actually a true transformation. Iruka-sensei, what's a true transformation? Asked Ino. It's an advanced transformation that actually transforms you into the targeted object, not just a simple genjutsu. It's also a Jonin level skill. Everyone thought Naruto was a complete and utter failure as a ninja, yet he actually graduated with 2 Jonin level skills under his belt, commented Iruka. Why? If Naruto was actually that skilled, then why was he the dead last? Asked Ino. Iruka remained silent. Because he was sabotaged by his teachers, commented Kakashi. Sabotaged? Shouted all the genin there. Why would someone try to sabotage Naruto? You all know the reason why, commented Kakashi as he turned to a now surprised Iruka. Yes, they know. And don't worry yourself. You were the first teacher to actually come around and truly care about Naruto's education, but there was nothing you could have done about the other half dozen or so teachers Naruto had, including one who even tried to have him branded as a traitor. They all turned their attention back to the fight to see Naruto create 3 clones which charged at Sasuke. While Naruto was making them, Sasuke caught the slight change in hand signs and knew he couldn't let those clones get near him. As such, he began retreating, but the clones were getting closer and by the time Naruto felt they were close enough, they exploded. Naruto smirked. That got him. That had to have gotten him. Naruto's, and everyone else's, eyes shot wide open when as a brilliant flame erupted from the center of the smoke as a flaming bird shot forth into the sky. Kaden, Ascension of the Phoenix, called out Sasuke as the giant flaming phoenix shot forth towards Naruto, igniting the very ground beneath. What's that? Asked Sakura. I didn't think he'd actually use it. That is the most powerful fire jutsu that Sasuke has at the moment. It's an A-rank jutsu that even I don't know, as it's an Uchiha clan technique. Kaden, Ascension of the Phoenix, commented Kakashi. Naruto, cried out Hinata. Naruto shook off the surprise and pulled out a different kunai from his side pouch. At first glimpse, this was just an ordinary kunai, but if one looked close enough, they could see that it was covered in a sealing matrix. Naruto then began going through a series of hand seals that no one even recognized. 2. Sha, Zen, Retsu, Zai, thought Naruto, making the necessary hand seals. Uzumaki Fuinjutsu. Absorption seal, fire. As the phoenix closed in on Naruto, the kunai Naruto had in his hand began to glow and an Uzumaki-style seal erupted from it in front of Naruto. The phoenix and the seal met head-on and everyone watched as Sasuke's fire jutsu swirled with the seal, until the seal had absorbed it entirely, resulting in a smirking Naruto and wide-eyed Sasuke. What was that? I didn't even recognize those hand seals, said a surprised Kakashi. And Uzumaki Fuinjutsu, said Jiraiya, rubbing the bruise on the side of his head. Naruto's little clone stunt had reminded Tsunade to punish the one who taught Naruto that jutsu, and as such Jiraiya needed to move away from the cage box, where he was previously, to spare him of any more injury. Everyone turned to Jiraiya for answer. And those hand seals were a part of a 9-hand seal set unique to the Uzumaki-style Fuinjutsu. How could a clan-less loser stop a brilliant jutsu like that of my precious Sasuke? Squealed one of the fangirls. Jiraiya sighed at the fangirl's outburst. Jiraiya-sama, what did you mean by an Uzumaki Fuinjutsu? Asked Tenten. It's exactly what I meant. An Uzumaki Fuinjutsu, a Fuinjutsu of the Uzumaki clan. And a very useful one at that, said Jiraiya. Uzumaki clan. You mean Naruto has a clan? Asked Ino. Well, kind of. To be honest, Naruto's the last of his clan. The Uzumakis were once a very powerful clan from Uzushiogakure no Sato that had close ties with our village. In fact, the Shadaime Hokage's wife was an Uzumaki. Uzumaki Mito to be exact, said Jiraiya. Were they really a powerful clan? Asked Kiba. Yes. And you just saw what made them powerful. They were a clan of Fuin masters and this made them feared throughout the elemental nations, said Jiraiya. But what happened to them? If Naruto's the last one, then something had to have happened, asked Choji. Didn't you guys learn about this in the academy? Asked Jiraiya. Everyone shook their heads and even Iruka gave Jiraiya a confused look. There was nothing regarding an Uzumaki clan in the curriculum at all, said Iruka. I may have mentioned the name when lecturing on the Shadaime, but nothing. There's something funny going on here, thought Jiraiya. I'll explain the rest after the match. Looks like Naruto and Sasuke are starting to get back into it. Sasuke grinned at Naruto. Naruto had just brushed away his most powerful fire jutsu like it was nothing. The Dobi was indeed more of a challenge than Sasuke had ever hoped for. That the best you've got, Tem, taunted Naruto. You wish, Dobi, replied Sasuke. Kaden. Dragon Fire Breath. Futon. Great breakthrough. The two jutsu met in the middle again and Naruto and Sasuke pumped more power into their jutsu, battling for dominance and increasing the size of the fireball in the middle. However, it was then that Sasuke cancelled his jutsu, giving Naruto control over the gigantic fireball and sending it in Sasuke's direction. The moment Sasuke released the jutsu, he started going through another series of hand seals. Kaden. Dragon's Wrath. Before the fireball could get to him, Sasuke unleashed yet another fire jutsu, aimed straight towards the oncoming supercharged fireball. The two jutsus met and yet another explosion ensued. As Naruto looked on, out of the smoke came Sasuke's jutsu, shaped like a large dragon's head, only much more powerful than any other dragon head-shaped jutsu that Sasuke had yet to unleash. Quickly, Naruto activated the absorption seal to take care of Sasuke's fire jutsu. The jutsu and seal met and the seal won as it absorbed Sasuke's jutsu. As soon as the sealing was complete, Naruto dropped Hikanai. The one downside to that absorption seal was that it could only absorb so much fire jutsu before it overheated to a point where it was beginning to glow red hot and Naruto's hands were burning just by touching it. Raiden. Lightning Cannon, called out Sasuke as he formed the sphere of condensed electricity in his hands and shot it towards Naruto. Naruto reacted just in time to grab his tri-pronged kunai. Futon. Wind Cutter, shouted Naruto, driving his kunai straight into the oncoming jutsu. The beam of lightning that was aimed at Naruto split as the wind jutsu and Sasuke's jutsu collided, sending the remnants of the jutsu safely on either side of Naruto. All throughout the stadium, similar thoughts were going around. There was no way these two competitors were only genin. The way they were fighting, people were thinking if these two were competing for the rank of Jonin or something even higher. What's the matter? Don't have one of those fancy seals for lightning, grinned Sasuke. Naruto returned the grin. Hey, only had time for fire. I was too busy working on the suppression seal to beat that slug Tem. Still more than enough for you though, replied Naruto. Sasuke smirked and activated his flame fist, which was the same as his flame step, only with the fire surrounding his hands. Naruto readied his wind blade and the two engaged in close combat once again. Naruto and Sasuke dodged each other's blows until Naruto caught Sasuke's upper right arm, stopping the flaming fist from smashing into his face and Sasuke grabbed Naruto's wrist to stop the wind blade from slicing through his neck. The fist that Sasuke caught Naruto's wrist was still on fire and Naruto cringed as his skin burned. What's the matter? Can't take the heat? Asked Sasuke. Naruto smirked back before disappearing in a puff of smoke. Sasuke had been sparring with a clone all this time. The real Naruto came from behind his clone, using it to shield himself from Sasuke's gaze. Futon. Pressure palm, shouted Naruto as he shoved a palm holding compressed wind chakra towards Sasuke. Sasuke reacted just in time to block with his still flaming fist. The two jutsus clashed and both competitors were thrown back by a violent explosion of flames from the meeting of fire and wind. Both competitors stood facing each other, singed and panting. The use of multiple high-ranked jutsu by both of them were beginning to take their toll. However, they weren't going to give up just because they were a little tired. Multi-shadow clone jutsu, shouted Naruto as 24 clones appeared and rushed Sasuke. Sasuke fought off the clones with ease. What's the matter? You're not getting tired on me, are you? Sasuke's attention was sent towards Naruto, who had just completed a long series of hand seals. Sasuke jumped back quick enough to avoid the 20-foot diameter column of pressurized air that Naruto had sent shooting down towards him. Both Naruto and Sasuke collapsed to one knee, feeling the fatigue of this fight start to wear on them. So you are getting tired on me? Come on, even Kakashi's workouts were easier than this, said Sasuke. Hey, you should see yourself, you can barely stand, commented Naruto. So, it's come to this, commented Sasuke, forcing himself to a standing position. Hey, it's not over yet, replied Naruto, doing the same. The two competitors locked eyes and they knew it was going to come down to one last move. It was time to find out who truly was stronger. Sasuke went through a few more seals and grabbed his right wrist while the hand was pointing down. The sound of birds filled the stadium as Sasuke activated his Chidori. Naruto held out his palm and formed the spiraling chakra sphere that had been passed on to him from his dad to his perverted teacher and finally to him. The Rasengan formed in a blue sphere and the two were ready. They're not serious, are they? Gasped Kurenai. I said they'd most likely kill each other, didn't I? Chuckled Kakashi. The entire stadium was on the edge of their seats as the two made one last dash for each other, their most powerful jutsus in hand. Naruto, gasped Hinata. Sasuke, gasped Sakura. Naruto and Sasuke thrusted their hands towards each other and the two jutsu met as a massive explosion ensued. Rasengan. Chidori.